we are going to enter expenses for your STEP IBR as well as reviewing them. In Amplifund, I have logged in and I went to Grant Management, All Grants, and I will have a list of all my grants. You'll see your STEP award. So go ahead and click into it to get started. If you have not already, you will need to complete your ACH form through Amplifund, as well as assign a grant manager. For more information on this, you can go to opportunity.nebraska.gov/Amplifund. At the top, there's an FAQ section. Click on the Award Management tab, and there is a user guide for award, what to do when you receive a grant, assigned recipient grant manager. Go ahead, open that, and then if you would like a video, there's also a video on how to do that. So you need to enter in your ACH information as well as assign a recipient grant manager, which is down here. So I've gone into my STEP award, and I'm going to go to look at my budget to see what was approved for my IBR. So I'm going to click on the Post Award tab, Financial Budget. In this example, this is my first IBR. If you have not done so already, I would go ahead and select the match column. For this IBR, it is a business trip. So you can see I'm getting $5,000, and it's going to say I need at least in cash match line items. And we know the line items are not, you don't know the exact numbers when you're approving the budget, and so you know they won't exactly match. But for example, the hotel, you have to use that per diem to stay within the limitations there. If you have a trip, you'll also see a cash match only meals line item. And so when you enter expenses to this cash match only line item, you'll only enter it as cash match. So that's just giving you the sum of cash match that you'll need. But if you don't have one of those, it would just be split up between your line items, but it doesn't need to be that way in your expenses. It just needs to be your total. So let's go ahead and go to the expense page. So we're going to go to Post Award, Financial Expenses. Go ahead and click in there. For simplicity, for my example, I'm just going to enter one expense per line item, but obviously you would have more in real life. So here is our expense page. It's going to be defaulted to your grant. You can either search by category, which is your IBR. So your category is right here, or you can search by line item. If you click Run, it will show your previous expenses if you have already done an IBR. We don't have any in this case, and in this options area, it's going to add and remove columns. So I would take out payee from default. I would leave in cash match. I take out GL account, take out in kind and responsible individual, and you probably don't need created by, but I would put in budget category. All right, so I will go ahead and create an expense. I'm going to click the create button, which is the plus icon. I'm going to left click because it's going to be a pop-up. Just going to default to my grant, and then I can select my category. I will only have one category available to me because I'm on IBR 1. But if you are on a sequential IBR, you'd have more options here, and depending on what option you choose, your corresponding line items would come up. So let's say I'm going to do my, let's do my airfare. We'll do an easy one first. So your direct cost is going to be your total cost. So it's going to be your cash match plus your grant funds. So let's say this is $3,000. And yes, it can be different than what was in my budget. I'm not going to exclude this from match because I'm going to use up all of my grant funds before I use my cash match, because I know I'll have that $1,250 in there. The expense date is the date of the invoice. It is not the date you are asking for your payment request. It is the date of the expense. For expense status, you're going to mark it as reviewed, and you have to mark it as reviewed so it will automatically pull into what we call a reporting period. And what a reporting period does is it can group all of those expenses together, and then it will, once you close that reporting period, it will close your expense. So this needs to be reviewed, very important. We do not need to do the payee, so you don't need to worry about that. And in the description, I would go ahead and enter in either the invoice name or more description on what this is. And obviously, it corresponds with the line item name. In the financials tab, this is where we would add our cash match. This example isn't going to have cash match right now, but if we did, we could either do a percentage, as in 100%. We needed to do 25%, or actually what I think is easier is just give me a dollar amount. So if you needed to do something, you click out, it automatically calculates. But right now we're going to do 0 because we'll just do that $5,000 first. In the attachments area is where you put your source documentation. So I'm going to go ahead and do my airline. I'm going to go ahead and click create. So now I can see it. It's marked as reviewed, which is what we want. It still has this edit pencil. If we needed to change something later, when we close a reporting period later, like if you forgot to do something or change an amount, when we close the reporting period later and this expense status is closed, we will not have this edit pencil and we will not be able to edit anything later. So I'm going to add another one. I'm going to do car rental. Direct cost, let's say, was $500. You probably have multiple of these, but for the simplified expense, I'm not going to do that. This, remember, expense status needs to be reviewed. In the financials, I'm going to leave this as 0 because I'm going to use that $5,000 of grant funds first. I'll click on attachments. Let's say this was receipt 1, 2. Nope. Let's delete that. Let's say it was this invoice. So you can see over here my amount. This is cash match plus grant funds. And then if I had cash match, it would be entered here. Do another one. And I'm going to do the lodging. So this was $1,800 because we had to match that per diem. Expense status, remember to mark it as reviewed. This was a June. And I know I'm going to have to split this one up, $1,500 of grant funds and $300 of cash match. So I'm just going to mark this as 300. So get my $1,500 and create. So since this one did have cash match, it's going to be in my cash match column. If I needed to edit this later, I could go ahead and click on the edit pencil. So now I have that meals. Again, you can have multiple, but I'm just going to do one. Expense status reviewed. And remember, for this specific line item, it can't come from grant funds. It's only coming from cash match. So for percentage, I can do 1, which is 100, or I can do that dollar and do 250. So when I clicked out of this specific box, it shows me my grant funded is 0, which is exactly what I want. For the attachments, I'm going to click. This was the receipt. So you can see my budget category. You can, remember, you can add multiple, add like another meals, for example. So I could just do this. I'm just going to show you an example of what it looks like when you have 2 line items. I know it's not going to be the, we shouldn't do the same, but you have 2 different line items. You can see I do need to change my date, but it's going to, each row is an expense. And whatever you put in the description box here, it's going to populate here. And if you don't enter anything, it's just going to say expense. So if you, this is nice where you can see this is all of IBR1, and here is all of my line items. If you want to see where you are, instead of having to total these up yourself, you can go back to this budget page, and in the top right is the recipient budget variance report, and the instructions, we tell you it is in the reports area. But if you go to the budget, this is the shortcut. So the nice thing about this report is that it's going to sum up all of your line items for you, including your cash match. 1 second, I need to find the correct word. There we go. So you might, if you have more than one award, you might need to filter it. But so here is all of, here's my 4 line items for IBR1. So if you have multiple IBRs, this will work out great for you. You can see your budgeted amounts, and then you can also see your actual grant funded, what you have entered, your actual cash match amounts. And I've noticed that we need a bunch more in cash match, because remember, this needs to be $12.50. So let's add another expense. So let's see how much we need. We need $12.50 minus $5.75. So we need $675 more dollars. So we have 2 options. We can either edit expenses if we don't have any more expenses left, or we can add more expenses if we have more eligible expenses. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's say we had another. This may not be realistic, but for my simple example, it will be. So we're going to add $675 to the car rental line item. We have to drive a lot. There. In the financials area, we need to make this all cash match. An invoice for it, but let's say it was this invoice. All right, let's refresh this page. And I'm going to have to find my grant on the right side again, which is fine. And here we go. Actual cash match, $1,250. There we go, with our $5,000 in expenses. So there. Now we have enough. So now in our next video, we will create a reporting period, close it, and create that payment.